Hey, welcome back. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is Flashpoints, the wars that shaped us. You know, living in New York, you get used to the sound of protests. A chorus of chants drifting down the avenues, a familiar rhythm in the life of the city. It makes you think about the right to assemble, to have your voice heard. But what happens when that right is met not with barricades and police, but with machine guns and private armies? What happens when the very ground you stand on becomes a battlefield? That's exactly what happened in the hills of West Virginia 100 years ago. This is the story of the Battle of Blair Mountain, the largest armed labor uprising in American history. Picture this. It's the late summer of 1921. The setting is the rugged, densely forested coal country of southern West Virginia. For decades, this land has been a feudal kingdom, owned and operated by coal companies. They own the houses miners live in, the stores they buy from with company scrip, the schools their children attend. And they rule with an iron fist. To resist, to even whisper the word union, means immediate eviction, blacklisting, or worse. The miners, many of them veterans of the First World War, are living in a state of economic serfdom. They're breathing in coal dust, dying in collapses and explosions, and watching their families go hungry. And they've had enough. The fuse was lit years earlier in the town of Mattawan, when the stone-cold Sheriff Sid Hatfield, a friend to the miners, got into a Wild West-style shootout with agents from the Baldwin Felts Detective Agency, essentially the coal company's private militia. Hatfield's victory made him a folk hero, but when he was later assassinated on the courthouse steps in broad daylight, that was the match. The miners saw it for what it was, a declaration that the law itself was owned by the coal operators. So, they decided to make their own law. They began to organize and arm themselves. They weren't just going on strike. They were marching to war. By late August 1921, an army of nearly 10,000 miners began to gather. They wore red bandanas around their necks, giving us the term redneck long before it was a political slur. It was a badge of solidarity. They carried high-powered rifles, pistols, and even a few machine guns. Their goal was to march over Blair Mountain, a strategic ridge, and into the non-union counties to the south to free imprisoned Union men, organize their brothers, and break the power of the coal companies once and for all. Standing in their way were roughly 3,000 men deputized by the Logan County Sheriff, an ardent anti-unionist named Don Chafin. Chafin's men were dug into fortified positions along the crest of Blair Mountain. They had machine gun nests, barbed wire, and they even hired private biplanes to drop leftover World War I bombs on the miners' positions. I want you to let that sink in. On American soil, in 1921, private aircraft were dropping explosives on American citizens. The battle raged for 5 days. The crackle of gunfire echoed through the hollows. Miners used the same trench warfare tactics they'd learned in France, advancing up steep, wooded slopes under heavy fire. There were moments of surreal chivalry. Both sides would call ceasefires to collect their dead and wounded, and even share water. But it was a real war. Estimates of the total casualties range from dozens to over 100. The turning point came only when President Warren G. Harding sent in federal troops. Not just infantry, but a bomber squadron from the Army Air Service. Faced with the full might of the United States military, the miners, many of them patriots who'd just fought for their country, laid down their arms. They simply would not fire on the American flag. In the immediate aftermath, the battle was declared a total defeat for the miners. Hundreds were arrested for treason and murder. The Union movement in the region was crushed and would not recover for over a decade. The coal companies tightened their grip. If you read the headlines from 1921, you'd think it was a simple story of lawless insurrection being put down. But history has a way of refining our vision, of letting the dust settle so we can see what really remains. And what remains is a profound paradox. In the short term, they lost. But in the grand sweep of history, Blair Mountain was a flashpoint that illuminated a fundamental American struggle. It forced the nation to look directly at the brutal conditions of industrial capitalism. It showcased the extreme lengths to which power would go to protect itself, and the sheer scale of the uprising. Those 10,000 red-bandanaed men proved that the hunger for dignity could not be starved out or shot down. Their courage became a legend, a seed planted in hard ground. That seed would eventually feed the labor movements of the 1930s, leading to the New Deal reforms that recognized the right to unionize, to safe working conditions, to a fair wage. The miners who charged up Blair Mountain didn't win their union that September, but they bled for a future where other workers could. Thinking about this from my perspective, as an engineer and an immigrant, I'm struck by the anatomy of a flashpoint. It's never just about the pay. It's about agency. It's about the right to have a say in the conditions of your own life. The miners weren't just fighting for more money. They were fighting to be seen as fully human in a system that viewed them as machinery. That's a feeling that transcends time and place. I hear echoes of it in the stories my own family told of struggles back in Bangladesh, and I see echoes of it in conversations about technology and work today. When does a grievance become a cause? When does a protest become a battle? It happens when every other door is not just closed, but welded shut. The mountain itself still stands, a silent witness. After decades of effort by historians and activists, much of the battlefield is now on the National Register of Historic Places, a fight to preserve the memory of a fight. Because some battles aren't just about territory, they're about the story we tell about who we are. The Battle of Blair Mountain reminds us that the rights we can take for granted, the weekend, the 8-hour day, safety regulations, were not gifts. They were prizes, won by people who often paid a terrible price. They were written not just in ink, but in the soil of places like Blair Mountain. Thanks for listening. If this story of a forgotten American uprising resonated with you, please share this episode with someone. It helps us keep bringing these hidden histories to light. For more deep dives into the conflicts that define us, subscribe to Flashpoints wherever you get your podcasts. This is Abnul J. Farabi for Light Not Studios. Visit us at lightnotstudios.com. Until next time, take care.